The Inner Universe. Part 1. The Beginning, the Experiment. It was midnight, and in one of the most secret laboratories on Earth, preparations were underway for humanity's boldest experiment. Behind steel walls, surrounded by glowing monitors, dozens of scientists held their breath. Tonight, for the first time in history, someone would shrink down and travel inside the human body. Dr. Arras, eyes shimmering behind his glasses, stared at the capsule in front of him. Inside, the volunteer explorer awaited the unimaginable. Her name was Ellen. She had chosen to risk everything, to journey where no human eye had ever wandered, the inner universe of another human being. From the speakers, a calm voice announced, "Countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it happened. A storm of light wrapped around the capsule, shimmering like liquid stars. Quantum fields, invisible to ordinary sight, folded space around Ellen, compressing her body smaller, first the size of a pebble, then the size of a grain of sand, then smaller still until she was no bigger than a single cell, vanishing from the naked eye. Ellen opened her eyes to find herself floating in a vast liquid sea. Around her drifted enormous crimson disks, red blood cells, now towering like giant moons. Their curved surfaces gleamed softly as they flowed past, each one carrying precious oxygen. Inside them, hemoglobin molecules clutched oxygen like tiny treasures, distributing life to every corner of the body. Far in the distance, a thunderous rhythm pulsed through the liquid ocean, the heartbeat. Every beat shook the world around her, sending tides of blood surging like tidal waves through the corridors of the body. It was not chaotic, though it was music. A steady, ancient rhythm that had never stopped since the first spark of life began. Ellen's thoughts whispered to herself. People think their bodies are ordinary, but inside there is a cosmos more beautiful than the stars. As she drifted deeper into the bloodstream, she noticed other shapes. Unlike the red disks, these were pale and irregular, almost spiked in form, larger, heavier, and moving with quiet vigilance. White blood cells, the body's guardians. They patrolled ceaselessly, hunting for invaders, viruses, bacteria, anything that did not belong. Ellen felt a shiver. If they noticed her, would they attack? To them, she might look like a foreign microbe. She steadied her breath, trying to remain unseen, a ghost in the currents of life. The river of blood carried her forward. Every surge of the heart propelled her deeper into this hidden world. Each vessel twisted like tunnels of living stone, guiding her to mysteries yet unknown. And as she let herself be swept forward, Ellen realized there was no turning back. She had crossed the threshold. The journey into the inner universe had begun. Part 2. The gates of the vessels. The bloodstream carried Ellen forward like a living river, each heartbeat pushing her deeper into the labyrinth of the body. The vessels stretched ahead of her like endless tunnels, branching and splitting, narrowing and widening. A map more complex than all the roads of Earth combined. She floated past red blood cells flowing in organized currents, like fleets of scarlet ships moving with perfect rhythm. Each one carried oxygen, the invisible fire of life, bound tightly inside its hemoglobin. Without this endless delivery, no muscle could move, no thought could arise, no dream could ever form. As Ellen drifted, she noticed how the vessel walls themselves were alive. Layers of smooth muscle fibers wrapped around the channels, contracting and relaxing with subtle waves. They were not passive pipes. They were guardians, controlling pressure, guiding blood like rivers shaped by living earth. She whispered to herself in awe, "These are not just vessels. They are gates, opening and closing, carrying the breath of life to every corner." Ahead, the current began to divide. The main vessel split into thousands of tiny branches, each one finer than a strand of hair. These were capillaries, the most delicate passageways of the circulatory system. Here, blood slowed, spreading like mist through a forest, releasing oxygen to tissues waiting in silence. She paused, mesmerized. Inside these narrow corridors, red cells squeezed and folded themselves just to pass through, like soft coins bending in impossible ways. With each passage, oxygen was delivered, and carbon dioxide was taken back in return. The very essence of respiration giving life, and carrying away waste played out quietly, millions of times every second. Far away, the thunder of the heart echoed again. She could feel its pull, as if the entire body were one great ocean tide controlled by a hidden moon. The heart never rested. Even in sleep, even in dreams, it continued its ceaseless labor, about 100,000 beats every single day, pumping nearly 7,000 liters of blood. Ellen thought of the people she knew, who took each heartbeat for granted. How many realized that within them, this miracle of circulation never paused? How many knew that their very thoughts were made possible because an army of red cells delivered oxygen to the brain in perfect time? As she moved through the branching pathways, she saw something astonishing. Tiny valves, like delicate doors, opened and closed within the veins. They prevented the current from flowing backward, keeping blood moving in only one direction. Without them, circulation would collapse. These silent doors, unnoticed by the conscious mind, kept the grand machinery of life in order. Ellen drifted past them, humbled. She was not just inside a body, she was inside a masterpiece. Every fiber, every gate, every drop of blood was part of an orchestra older than history. Deeper still, the vessels guided her toward a new horizon. She felt the air calling. And in the distance, like a glowing forest of crystal branches, she glimpsed her next destination, the lungs. Part 3. The crystal forest of the lungs, the river of blood carried Ellen toward a glowing horizon. The vessel walls widened, and suddenly she found herself in a new world, an endless branching landscape that shimmered like glass under moonlight. It was the lungs. From above, it looked like an immense crystal forest. Pathways split into smaller and smaller branches, dividing again and again, until they became so fine they looked like threads of silver mist. These were the bronchi and bronchioles, the airways that led to the deepest chambers of breath. Ellen drifted closer, and what she saw stole her words. At the end of every branch were countless tiny spheres alveoli, millions of them. They opened and closed gently, like a vast field of flowers blooming and folding with every breath. Each one was a fragile bubble, thinner than tissue paper, yet strong enough to hold the breath of life. Here, oxygen danced its secret dance. With every inhale, air rushed in, filling the alveoli with invisible molecules. Oxygen slipped across the delicate walls, passing effortlessly into waiting red blood cells. In return, carbon dioxide, the body's silent waste, moved out, carried away with the exhale. It was a perfect trade, repeated endlessly, moment after moment, breath after breath. Ellen reached out her hand. She felt the flow of oxygen as if it were stardust sliding past her fingers, dissolving into the river of blood. Each molecule carried the promise of life, destined for muscles, for the brain, for the beating heart itself. She whispered, "This is the language of existence." Inhale and exhale, giving and receiving. She realized that the lungs were not just organs. They were bridges connecting the outside universe to the inner universe. With every breath, the world outside became part of the world within. The air of forests, oceans, and mountains was now flowing through this body, through these fragile crystal chambers. Ellen paused, listening. She could hear the soft rhythm of breathing. Inhale, exhale, like the rise and fall of ocean tides. Slow, steady, eternal. Even in sleep, even in dreams, the lungs carried on, whispering their quiet song. She drifted deeper into the forest of alveoli. Around her, red blood cells pressed close to the thin alveolar walls, eagerly taking oxygen, glowing brighter with each gift they received. She thought of humanity, how people often rushed through their days, never realizing that each breath was a miracle, each inhale a gift, each exhale a release. For a moment, she closed her eyes and let the rhythm of breathing calm her. It felt like floating in a cradle, rocked gently by the tides of air. But beyond the crystal forest, another sound was calling, a low, rolling roar like a storm behind stone walls. The stomach. Her journey was about to lead her into the fiery labyrinth of digestion, where the body transformed matter into energy, and survival was forged in silence. Part 4. The Labyrinth of Digestion. The tides of blood released Ellen near a new gateway. A deep rumble echoed through the walls around her, low and steady, like the growl of a distant storm. Ahead stretched a vast cavern, glowing with golden light and swirling currents. She had entered the stomach. At first glance, it was overwhelming. The chamber was enormous, its walls folding and unfolding like living mountains. Every few moments, powerful waves rippled through them, churning the liquid that filled the cavern. This was no ordinary liquid. It was gastric acid, strong enough to dissolve food into fragments, breaking it down into the raw materials of life. Ellen hovered above the surface of this ocean, watching as pieces of digested matter floated like drifting islands. Each one was slowly dismantled by invisible forces, hydrochloric acid and enzymes, tiny molecular workers that cut, tear, and dissolve. Proteins unraveled into amino acids, starches into sugars, fats into droplets, ready to be carried away. She whispered in awe, "This is a forge, a furnace of transformation. Every meal a human eats, every bite taken in haste or joy, ended here reduced to its smallest pieces, so that the body could rebuild them into energy, strength, and thought itself." Ellen drifted along the walls and noticed something fascinating. Despite the acid's strength, the stomach did not destroy itself. Its inner lining was coated with mucus, a protective shield renewed constantly to keep the organ safe from its own fire. Without this shield, the stomach would erode and life would collapse. She realized something profound. Survival depended not only on strength, but on balance, on protection, as much as on power. The churning waves began to guide her downward, toward a narrow passage that opened like a guarded gate. This was the pyloric sphincter, a muscular valve that released food, little by little, into the small intestine. The stomach did not surrender its treasures all at once. It released them carefully, in measured amounts, to ensure the next chamber could handle them. And then Ellen entered a world unlike anything she had seen before. The small intestine stretched ahead of her like an endless labyrinth, over 6 meters of twisting tunnels, folded and coiled within the body. Its walls were not smooth, but lined with countless finger-like shapes, villi, tiny projections that reached into the passing stream of digested food. Each villus was covered with even smaller shapes, microvilli forming what scientists call the brush border. Together, they created an enormous surface area like a forest within the body. And in this forest, absorption began. Sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, all the broken fragments of food were pulled into the bloodstream through these living roots. It was here that matter became part of the body. Ellen floated among the villi, watching them drink in nutrients like thirsty trees drinking rain. She realized that in this moment, the boundary between the outside world and the self was crossed. A piece of bread, a sip of water, a bite of fruit, all transformed, all claimed, all becoming part of the human who had consumed them. And yet, this labyrinth was not silent. Millions of tiny creatures lived here, bacteria, forming the gut microbiome. They were not enemies, but partners. They digested fibers the body could not, produced vitamins, trained the immune system, and even influenced mood and thought through invisible chemical messengers. Ellen could feel their presence, a hidden community living in harmony with their host. So even within us, she thought, we are never alone. We are ecosystems, entire worlds filled with countless lives. The current pulled her deeper, toward the large intestine, where water would be reclaimed and waste prepared for release. But before she could follow that path, another force tugged at her. A signal, sharp and electric, racing through the walls around her. The nervous system. It was calling her toward its radiant highways of light, where thoughts, memories, and dreams were born. Part 5. The Silent Army. The immune system. Ellen emerged from the labyrinth of digestion, her senses still filled with the echoes of churning waves and the quiet work of enzymes. But now the atmosphere changed. The currents of the bloodstream grew tense, as though she had entered a hidden battlefield. Here, in the unseen layers of the body, a war was always being fought, a war without rest, without mercy, and without end. It was the immune system, the silent army that guarded every breath, every heartbeat, every dream. The first she saw were the sentinel's white blood cells drifting through the vessels like watchful guardians. Neutrophils, the most common soldiers, moved with restless energy. Their surfaces shimmered with sensors, scanning constantly for invaders. They reminded her of wolves, tireless and alert, ready to strike at the first sign of danger. Further along, she saw the macrophage's giant cells, slow but unstoppable. They drifted like ancient beasts, and when they encountered debris or intruders, they swallowed them whole, dissolving them in their acidic interiors. To watch them was to see nature's recycling machines, devouring the old and broken so that life could remain pure. Ellen floated deeper into the immune stronghold. Suddenly, she witnessed an alarm being raised. A foreign particle had slipped into the body, a tiny virus, its spiked shell glinting menacingly. The response was immediate. Neutrophils rushed in, surrounding it. Macrophages moved closer, their giant forms casting shadows. But the virus was cunning. It multiplied quickly, slipping into nearby cells, trying to turn the body's own machinery against itself. That was when the special forces arrived. From hidden channels, lymphocytes surged forward. The B cells, like brilliant codebreakers, began producing antibodies, tiny Y-shaped weapons that latched onto the virus, marking it as prey. The T cells followed, swift and merciless. Some were killers, seeking out infected cells and destroying them before the virus could spread. Others were commanders, coordinating the entire defense with chemical signals, ensuring that every soldier fought as one. To Ellen, it looked like a cosmic war played out on a microscopic stage. The battlefield lit up with bursts of chemical fire, signals flashing like stars. Cells collided, embraced, dissolved. Antibodies rained down like arrows, binding the enemy until it could no longer hide. And then, almost as suddenly as it began, the battle was over. The virus was gone, dismantled piece by piece, its remnants consumed by macrophages. The army returned to its patrol, silent once more. Ellen drifted in awe. She thought of how many such battles must occur every day, every hour, without the person ever knowing. The body was not a fragile shell. It was a fortress, its walls guarded by an army that never slept. And yet, it was more than just war. She realized the immune system also carried memory. Some cells, survivors of countless past battles, lingered in the bloodstream, holding the knowledge of every invader the body had ever faced. With this memory, the body grew stronger, faster, more prepared. It was as if each life carried within it an ancient library of victories, a record of survival written not in books, but in living cells. Ellen whispered, almost reverently, "Inside us lives an army, and inside that army, a memory." Perhaps that is why humanity endures. As she floated away from the battlefield, she felt the pull of something different, something even more mysterious. A glowing current, brighter than blood, swifter than air. It was the nervous system, the lightning pathways of thought itself. The next stage of her journey awaited, the highways of electricity and the vast universe of the brain. Part 6. The Highways of Lightning. The nervous system and the brain. Ellen left the battlefield of the immune system behind, drifting toward a realm where movement, sensation, and thought converged. Here, the currents were different. They crackled like lightning, faster than she could perceive, shooting along invisible highways in every direction. She had entered the nervous system. Axons stretched like glowing wires, carrying tiny electrical pulses. Dendrites reached out like delicate branches, forming endless connections with other neurons. Synapses sparked with chemical fire, bridging gaps smaller than a millionth of a meter. Every sensation, every heartbeat, every thought was carried along these pathways at incredible speed, up to 120 meters per second. Ellen watched in awe as signals traveled from one neuron to another. A flicker of light here, a cascade of sparks there. Pain, pleasure, curiosity, fear, love, each emotion was just a wave of electricity passing through this vast network. The nervous system was not just wiring. It was the very interface between the inner universe and the outer world. And then she saw the brain. It was a cathedral of complexity, larger than any structure she had ever known. Billions of neurons formed patterns that pulsed and shimmered like constellations in a living galaxy. Glial cells moved silently among them, supporting, nourishing, cleaning up, and maintaining the delicate balance. The brain was alive, not just with thought, but with constant care for itself. Ellen floated through the folds of the cerebral cortex, where reasoning, memory, and imagination were made. She glimpsed neurons firing in perfect synchrony, orchestrating perception, learning, creativity, and emotion. Each flicker was a word in an infinite conversation between billions of cells. She realized something extraordinary. The brain was not simply an organ. It was a universe unto itself. Within its folds, every memory she had ever known, every feeling ever experienced, every dream ever imagined, was encoded as patterns of electricity and chemistry. Every human mind was a cosmos of thought, hidden yet endlessly vast. Beyond the cortex, deeper still, lay the limbic system and emotional core glowing softly. Fear, love, joy, sorrow, curiosity, all were concentrated here, like stars in a cluster. The hippocampus stored ancient records, while the amygdala monitored threats. Every beat of the heart, every inhale, every shiver of the skin was guided by this mysterious orchestra. Ellen watched in wonder as signals shot along the spinal cord, reaching arms, legs, fingers, and toes. Every movement, from the blink of an eye to the twitch of a toe, was choreographed by invisible pulses traveling faster than light seemed to move. The human body was a lightning storm, tamed and directed by the brain's genius. And yet, amid all this complexity, there was calm. A deep rhythm, a balance, a harmony. The nervous system was the mind's ocean, vast and electric, but flowing with a silent, serene order. Ellen whispered, almost in awe, "We are not just flesh and bone. We are a universe of light and thought, a cosmos within ourselves." From here, the journey would take her even deeper into the very code of life itself, the blueprint of existence hidden in every cell. The next destination awaited, the genetic library DN of the Book of Life. Part 7. The genetic library, DNA, and the code of life. Ellen floated away from the glowing highways of the nervous system, carried by the gentle currents of the bloodstream. She entered a realm smaller than the eye could perceive, yet more profound than any galaxy she had ever seen. She had reached the cells, the building blocks of life. And within each cell, the nucleus glowed like a tiny sun. Here lay the DNA, the genetic library, the code of life itself. The strands twisted and turned, forming double helices that spiraled like cosmic staircases. They were longer than the body itself, if stretched end to end, yet folded with perfect precision inside each microscopic nucleus. Every twist, every turn, Every base pair was a letter in the story of life, written in a language older than humanity. Ellen moved closer, mesmerized by the elegance. Adenine paired with thymine, cytosine with guanine, forming the alphabet of existence. These sequences determined everything, from the color of hair to the strength of bones, from the rhythm of the heartbeat to the way neurons fired in the brain. She realized the DNA was more than instructions. It was memory. It carried the legacy of every ancestor, every adaptation, every survival triumph across millions of years. Inside her host's body, the code whispered secrets of evolution, resilience, and life itself. Tiny molecular machines moved along the strands RN polyamerases, transcribing sections into messages. Ribosomes translating those messages into proteins, the builders and caretakers of the body. Each cell was a city, and DNA was its grand library, directing all activity with flawless precision. Ellen drifted among the chromosomes, feeling their silent power. She thought of how humans often took their bodies for granted, unaware that inside them existed such vast information, a universe of instructions shaping every heartbeat, every thought, every dream. And then she noticed something even more profound, the dynamic beauty of life. DNA was not static. It repaired, it adapted, it evolved with every moment. It communicated, influenced, and guided cells, orchestrating harmony amidst chaos. The body was not just a machine, it was a living, learning, ever-changing world. Ellen whispered softly, in reverence, "To journey inside a body is to journey through time itself." Each of us carries the story of countless generations, written in the language of life. From here, the journey began its final stage. She had traveled through blood and breath, through defense and thought, through digestion and creation. Now it was time to leave, to ascend back to the surface, carrying with her the knowledge of the inner universe. The final chapter awaited, the return awareness, reflection, and the peace of understanding one's own body. Part 8. Return and Awakening. The journey back. Ellen drifted slowly away from the glowing strands of DNA, leaving behind the libraries of life that had recorded every story of every ancestor. She felt a gentle current carrying her upward, toward the wider rivers of the bloodstream, back toward the beating heart that had first drawn her into this inner universe. As she floated, she reflected on all she had seen. The flowing blood, the delicate lungs, the labyrinth of digestion, the armies of the immune system, the lightning-fast highways of the nervous system, the glowing galaxy of the brain, and the infinite strands of DNA. Every part of the body, every cell, every molecule, had its place, its purpose, and its poetry. She felt herself becoming larger, slowly returning to her normal size, her body reassembling in perfect alignment. The journey from microcosm to human scale was gentle, like awakening from a dream. Yet the memory of the inner universe remained vivid in her mind. As she emerged from the capsule, the laboratory came back into focus. Scientists around her smiled, their eyes full of wonder. But Ellen's gaze lingered on something more profound. She had seen what few ever could, the universe within. She whispered to herself, "We are more than flesh and bone. We are rivers of life, oceans of thought, armies of guardians, and libraries of eternity. Every heartbeat, every breath, every spark of consciousness is a testament to the miracle of life." Ellen closed her eyes for a moment, letting the calm of her journey wash over her. The inner universe had taught her something essential. The human body was not just a vessel, it was a living cosmos, a delicate symphony of countless forces working in harmony. The heart continued its rhythmic thunder. The lungs breathed silently. The immune system patrolled endlessly. The brain pulsed with thought. DNA hummed quietly, carrying the wisdom of ages. And yet, for Ellen, the greatest revelation was this: to know the body was to know oneself. To witness the inner universe was to recognize the infinite complexity and beauty within every human being. She opened her eyes, filled with awe and gratitude. Outside, the world remained the same, but inside, everything had changed. She carried a secret now, a profound truth whispered by the very fabric of life. As the night deepened, she realized something comforting. The human body, in all its mystery and majesty, never truly sleeps. Even as consciousness fades, the rivers flow, the forests breathe, the armies guard, and the universe within continues silent, eternal, perfect. Ellen smiled softly, and in that smile, she felt the quiet, infinite heartbeat of life itself. The journey was complete. This story ends here. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and share the video. If you want to watch and listen to more scientific stories like this, remember to follow us and subscribe. We will be sharing scientific stories for you every day. See you in the next stories.